At Christmas dinner, my mom looked me right in the eye and said, "You're a burden. Leave." It still feels unreal even as I type it. Stay with me through this story, because what happened that night changed the way I see family forever. The house was filled with the smell of roasted turkey, cinnamon pies, and the kind of holiday warmth that's supposed to bring families together. But in my house, the tension was louder than the carols playing faintly in the background. I was 17, sitting quietly at the end of the table, trying to avoid my mom's sharp glances. Clarissa Johnson, my mom, had a way of making me feel small with just a look. My stepdad Derek sat next to her, never speaking up, always nodding along as if silence was his safety net. I had barely touched my plate. My little half-brother, Miles, was the center of attention as usual, bragging about the gifts he got and the special trip Mom promised him. Everyone laughed and smiled at his stories, but I felt invisible, like I didn't belong in my own family. Then out of nowhere, Mom put down her fork and stared at me. The whole table went quiet. "Amara," she said, her voice sharp and cutting, "you're a burden. You don't do anything for this family. Maybe it's time you leave." The words hit me harder than any slap could. My throat closed up, and for a second, I thought I had misheard her. But no one corrected her. Not Derek. Not even Miles. They just looked down at their plates, pretending nothing had happened. The room felt heavy, like all the air had been sucked out of it. I wanted to scream, to ask why she hated me so much, but nothing came out. Instead, I sat there frozen, my chest tight, my eyes burning with tears I refused to let fall in front of them. "Go pack your things after dinner," she added coldly, as if she were asking someone to take out the trash. "You don't belong here anymore." The betrayal stung deeper than anything I'd ever felt. It wasn't just her words. It was the silence of everyone else at that table. My own family couldn't even defend me on Christmas night. I excused myself, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. I walked down the hall to my room, each step heavier than the last. The lights on the tree blinked cheerfully, mocking me as I passed. My hands shook as I stuffed a few clothes into a bag. Upstairs, I could hear laughter again, as if my pain had been erased from their minds in seconds. That was the night I realized I was completely unwanted in my own home. And that was also the night something inside me broke and started to burn. The cold air bit into my skin as I stepped outside with nothing but a small bag slung over my shoulder. Christmas lights twinkled on every house down the street, glowing reds and greens that should have felt magical. But to me they were just mocking reminders of the family warmth I had been pushed out of. My breath came out in white clouds as I walked quickly to the bus stop, hugging my jacket tighter, praying I wouldn't break down before I even made it onto the bus. When the bus finally pulled up, its headlights cut through the dark like tired eyes. I climbed aboard, the driver barely glancing at me, and sank into a seat near the back. The bus was almost empty, just a few strangers staring at their phones or nodding off. I pressed my forehead to the cold glass window, watching the world blur by. Stores with Merry Christmas signs, families holding hands, children laughing as they pointed at decorations. Every bit of joy outside only deepened the hollow ache inside me. My phone buzzed in my hand. It was a reply from Grandma Evelyn. I had texted her while stuffing my bag, fingers shaking. She wrote, "Door will be unlocked. Just come straight in, baby." Tears welled up in my eyes at those words. In just one short message, she gave me the comfort my own mother never could. As the bus rumbled on, my mind wandered back through years of memories I wished I could forget. Mom never missed a chance to remind me how lazy I was, how dramatic I acted whenever I cried. It didn't matter if I had gotten straight A's or cleaned the whole kitchen or stayed up late studying. Nothing I did was ever enough. Meanwhile, Miles could spill juice on the carpet, break something in the living room, or talk back, and Mom would just laugh it off and call him her little man. I thought about every birthday where Miles got shiny gifts and I got a card with a few words written quickly inside. Every school performance where I searched for her in the crowd and only saw an empty seat. Every argument where she looked at me like I was a stranger who had inconvenienced her by being born. The pain burned, but in that quiet, dimly lit bus, something else stirred too. I started building a list in my head, piece by piece, of every betrayal, every moment she tried to tear me down. For the first time, I wasn't just drowning in sadness. I was holding on to anger, sharp and steady. I wiped my tears before anyone noticed. The bus rattled on toward Grandma's house, toward safety, but I knew this wasn't the end. My mom had thrown me away, but she didn't know me as well as she thought. Someday, I would make sure she saw what she had done. And I wouldn't be silent about it anymore. When the bus finally screeched to a stop near Grandma's street, I stepped out into the freezing night air. The neighborhood was quiet, the snow crunching under my shoes as I hurried down the familiar road. Even though it was late, the porch light at Grandma Evelyn's house was glowing like a beacon. My chest loosened just a little when I saw it. She had kept her promise. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open slowly, the warmth of the house hitting me instantly. The smell of stew drifted through the air, comforting in a way I hadn't felt in years. "Amara," Grandma's voice called from the kitchen. The moment she saw me, she dropped the wooden spoon in her hand and rushed over. Her arms wrapped tightly around me, and for the first time that night, I let myself cry. She pulled back, holding my face in her hands. "What did she do now?" she asked, her voice shaking with both anger and worry. I tried to answer, but the words stuck in my throat. My whole body trembled, and Grandma just guided me to the couch. She wrapped a blanket around my shoulders before placing a steaming bowl of stew in front of me. Between shaky breaths, I told her everything. How Mom had stared at me across the table and told me to leave. How Derek sat silent. How no one defended me. I could barely get the words out before my tears blurred everything. Grandma listened, her lips pressed into a hard line. When I finished, she slammed her hand on the armrest. "Clarissa has lost her mind," she snapped. "How dare she talk to you like that? On Christmas, of all nights." I shook my head, ashamed, whispering, "Maybe she's right, maybe I am a burden." Grandma leaned forward, her eyes fierce but soft at the same time. "Don't you ever say that again," she told me. "You are not a burden, baby. You're a blessing. Do you hear me? A blessing." Her words sank deep, filling cracks I didn't know I had. We sat together for hours, the clock ticking quietly in the background. I told her stories I'd never shared before, about being called lazy, about Mom hiding things from me, about all the nights I went to bed feeling invisible. She listened to every word, sometimes shaking her head, sometimes holding my hand tighter. As the night stretched on, something started to shift inside me. For years I had just swallowed the pain, let it eat at me silently. But now, hearing Grandma's anger at what her own daughter had done, I realized I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining the cruelty. It was real. And it wasn't my fault. Lying in the guest room later, wrapped in soft blankets, I should have felt safe enough to finally rest. But underneath the comfort, a fire had started to burn. My mom wanted me gone, erased, forgotten. But I couldn't let her win like that. She needed to face the truth. For the first time, I began to wonder how I could make that happen. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of voices drifting down the hallway. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming, but when I sat up and listened, I realized Grandma Evelyn was talking in the kitchen. Her voice was low, but the anger in it made every word sharp. I pulled the blanket tighter around me and tiptoed toward the doorway, careful not to make a sound. "I can't believe Clarissa would say something like that to her own child," Grandma said. I froze. She was on the phone, but soon I heard another voice. It was Aunt Naomi. "She must have come over early." "She's been like this for years, Mama," Naomi replied, her tone tired. "You know why? She's never forgiven Amara for looking so much like her father. Every time she sees that girl, it's like she's staring at the past she wanted to erase." My breath caught. My father. The man I barely remembered. I had only a few faint memories, his laugh, the way he carried me on his shoulders. He died when I was little, and Mom never talked about him. Now I understood why. She favored Miles from the beginning, Naomi continued. She built a new family and wanted Amara out of the picture. It wasn't about Amara being lazy or dramatic. It was jealousy. She couldn't stand the reminder of the man she lost. I pressed a hand against the wall to steady myself. So all those years of harsh words, the cold stares, the punishments that never made sense, it wasn't because I was broken. It was because I carried my father's face. "She's cruel," Grandma said, her voice trembling with rage. Cruel to her own daughter. I should have stepped in sooner. I crept back into the guest room, my heart racing, my chest tight with emotions I didn't know how to hold. Anger flared hot in my stomach, mixing with a strange sense of relief. For the first time, I could see it clearly. It wasn't me. It had never been me. I wasn't the problem. Memories flooded my mind. The times she called me worthless, the nights she told me I'd never be good enough, the way she always laughed louder at Miles' jokes than mine. I used to think if I tried harder, got better grades, cleaned the house more, stayed quiet, maybe she'd love me. But now I knew the truth. Nothing I did would have ever been enough. because I wasn't the daughter she wanted. Tears slipped down my cheeks, but they weren't the same kind as before. These weren't helpless tears. They were hot with rage, heavy with a new kind of strength. She thought she could push me away and forget me, but I wouldn't let her. That morning, as the winter sun lit the frost on the window, I made a decision. I wasn't going to disappear quietly. I wasn't going to let her rewrite the story of who I was. If she wanted me gone, then she was about to learn what it felt like when the truth came back and knocked on her door. I told Selah everything as soon as she sat down with me in Grandma's kitchen. She didn't gasp or tell me to calm down. She just looked at me with that steady, no-nonsense face and said, "We'll make this right." Saying it out loud made me feel less alone, like the anger in my chest had someone to lean on. We brewed tea and started listing things like detectives. We wrote down every moment that proved Clarissa's cruelty. The hidden letters, the birthdays she ignored, the time she blamed me for Miles breaking the vase, the school notes she never signed. Selah pulled out a notebook and, with a pen that clicked, she said, "We get facts. We get witnesses. We tell the truth when everyone's there to hear it." Gathering proof felt strange at first. Back at my old room, I went through drawers with shaking hands. I found a pile of things I had thought lost. A teacher's note praising my project, a picture of Dad lifting me on his shoulders, a postcard I'd sent from summer camp that Clarissa had never mailed. Each piece was a quiet betrayal. Proof she had hidden parts of my life like they were shameful. We took photos, made copies, and wrote dates beside each item. Selah typed a list of people who had seen things. Aunt Naomi, my old music teacher, even Mrs. Klein from the library, who remembered how Clarissa once canceled my club trip and told me I was too sensitive. Grandma Evelyn paced, wringing her hands, but she never stopped helping. She made phone calls, asking quietly if certain relatives would be willing to speak honestly if asked. She warned me to be careful, to think about how I wanted to say things. "Truth is sharp, baby," she said. "If you throw it like a stone, it will break more than one window. Make sure you know which windows you want broken." Her worry made me steadier. She packed envelopes for me with copies of the letters and put a hand on my shoulder like she had done when I scraped my knee as a child. We planned the timing. New Year's at Aunt Naomi's would bring everyone together. Clarissa would be there, polished and charming, ready to play perfect mother. That was when we would confront her, not out of spite, but so the family could see the pattern clearly. Selah taught me how to speak calmly. "Anger is honest, but calm is credible," she said. We wrote a short speech, clear, factual, no shouting. We practiced it until my voice didn't tremble. There were risks. Clarissa could deny everything, twist words, make us look like liars. That thought made my stomach drop, but it also made me prepare harder. We arranged for Aunt Naomi and Grandma to be present, and for a few cousins to sit quietly and listen. We made copies of each piece of evidence, and put them in an envelope marked with dates. I promised myself I wouldn't seek to ruin Clarissa. I wanted her to be seen for what she was so nobody else would be confused by her smiles. Night after night I rehearsed, read through the letters, and let the plans settle into my bones. The fear was still there, sharp and real, but it was matched by a new kind of resolve. I wasn't running away anymore. I was coming back with the truth in my hands. Aunt Naomi's house buzzed with noise and laughter as the family gathered for New Year's dinner. The smell of roasted chicken and collard greens drifted through the air, and cousins ran through the hallway, their shoes squeaking against the polished floor. I sat near the end of the long dining table, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure someone could hear it. When Clarissa walked in, the whole room seemed to shift. She wore a glittering scarf and held Miles by the shoulder like he was a trophy. "My little man just made honor roll," she announced proudly, planting a kiss on his cheek. She hugged relatives one by one, laughing easily, her smile wide and perfect. To everyone else, she looked like the image of a devoted mother. I watched from my seat, my fists hidden under the table. I had to remind myself to breathe. Dinner started with clinking glasses and loud chatter. Clarissa told story after story about Miles, his soccer game, his grades, even how funny he was at home. Everyone laughed politely, nodding at her every word. It was almost impressive, the way she painted her life so spotless. But I kept my eyes on my plate, my fork scraping gently against it. Selah gave me a small nod from across the table. The moment was coming. I waited until the plates were half empty, until the noise had softened. Then I lifted my head and said clearly, "Mom, do you remember what you told me on Christmas?" The table froze. Forks stopped midair. Clarissa blinked at me, her smile still fixed but strained around the edges. "What are you talking about, Amara?" she said with a laugh too sharp to be casual. "You told me I was a burden," I said, my voice steady. "And you told me to leave." A silence fell so heavy it made my skin prickle. Miles shifted uncomfortably in his chair, glancing at Mom. Derek cleared his throat but said nothing. Clarissa waved her hand, forcing a chuckle. "Oh, that? It was just a joke. You're so sensitive, Amara. Always taking things the wrong way." I shook my head, my chest tight but strong. "No, it wasn't a joke. You meant it. And you didn't just say it. You made me leave my own home on Christmas night." Whispers broke out around the table. Cousins glanced at one another. Aunt Naomi's eyes narrowed, and Grandma Evelyn's hand clenched on the tablecloth. Clarissa's smile faltered, but she straightened her shoulders. "Don't exaggerate, Amara. You're trying to embarrass me in front of everyone." I looked around the table, meeting the eyes of relatives who had seen glimpses of the truth over the years. "I'm not exaggerating. I'm telling the truth. And you know it." The air grew tense, thick with something that felt like a storm about to break. For the first time in my life, I wasn't shrinking under her words, I was holding my ground. And everyone could see it. Amara reached slowly into her bag, her fingers brushing against the folded paper she had carried like a secret weapon. The room was tense, every eye fixed on her. Clarissa shifted uncomfortably in her seat, still clinging to her glass of wine, as if its stem could anchor her to her crumbling facade. "I want to show you something," Amara said, her voice clear, unwavering. She unfolded the worn envelope, the creases soft from years of hiding. "This is a letter my father wrote before he died. I only found it recently, because Mom hid it from me." Gasps rippled through the table. Amara flattened the letter and began reading aloud. Her father's words spilled into the room, filled with love and reassurance. "Amara, my sweet girl, don't ever doubt how much I adore you. You're my light. No matter what happens, know you are my heart." Her throat tightened as she spoke, but she powered through, her voice growing stronger with each sentence. "He wanted me to know he loved me. He wanted me to feel safe. But Mom decided I didn't deserve to hear it." Clarissa's face drained of color. "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "You're twisting things." "I never." Amara cut her off, her words sharp as knives. "And on Christmas night, in front of your husband and son, you looked at me and said, 'You're a burden. Leave.' That wasn't a joke. That wasn't love. That was you wanting me gone." The air was heavy, charged with disbelief and anger. Chairs creaked as relatives shifted uncomfortably, murmurs rising. All eyes turned to Clarissa, who suddenly seemed small, cornered, her charm slipping away like sand through her fingers. Then Evelyn spoke, her voice breaking but firm. "She came to my house that night," she said, nodding toward Amara. Shaking, crying, barely able to breathe. "She sat at my table on Christmas, broken because her own mother threw her away." Selah's eyes brimmed with tears, and even Naomi pressed a hand to her chest. The silence that followed wasn't on Amara, it was on Clarissa. Clarissa tried to laugh again, but it came out brittle. "You're all making a mountain out of nothing. Kids exaggerate. She's always been sensitive." But no one rushed to defend her this time. Miles fidgeted, staring at his plate. Derek, who had once nodded along to Clarissa's cruel words, sat stiff and silent, his head bowed, shame painting his face. One cousin leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Why would you hide her father's letter? Why would you do that to your own child?" Another uncle muttered, "It's no wonder she left." Clarissa's mouth opened and closed, searching for excuses, but nothing came. For the first time, the spotlight she craved didn't make her shine, it burned her. And Amara sat there, the letter still trembling in her hands, knowing the truth had finally broken free. The room erupted after Amara's words settled like a stone in still water. For a long moment no one spoke, then Evelyn's voice cracked through the silence. "Clarissa," she said, her tone sharp and trembling, "I am ashamed of you. Ashamed to call you my daughter." Clarissa's lips parted, but Evelyn raised her hand to silence her. "You hid her father's love, and then you dared to throw his child away on Christmas night. What kind of mother does that?" Aunt Naomi leaned forward, anger burning in her eyes. "Cruel. That's what you are, Clarissa. Cruel and heartless. You've always acted like Amara was a burden, and now the truth is out. You wanted everyone to think you were this perfect mother, but you're nothing but a fraud." Clarissa's cheeks flushed red, her hands clenching at her sides. "You don't understand." But no one was listening. Miles, wide-eyed and pale, looked between his mother and his sister. "Mom," he whispered, his voice shaky, "did you really say that to her?" Did you really tell her to leave on Christmas? Clarissa turned to him, desperation flashing across her face. Miles, honey, you know I was joking. You know I love you both. But Miles shook his head, confusion and hurt clouding his expression. No, you've never treated her like you treat me. I thought it was just me imagining it, but now, his voice broke, and he sank back into his chair, silent tears running down his face. The relatives murmured, some in anger, others in disbelief. The perfect image Clarissa had built for herself cracked and shattered right there at the table. Derek kept staring at his hands, unable to look anyone in the eye. Clarissa's voice rose, sharp and desperate. You're all turning against me because of her lies. You don't know what it's like, raising a child who… Enough! Evelyn's voice thundered through the room. She slammed her palm against the table, dishes rattling from the force. That girl is your daughter. She is blood of your blood. And instead of protecting her, you've torn her down at every chance. You failed her, Clarissa. The words cut deeper than any blade, and everyone knew it. Clarissa's chest heaved as she looked around, realizing there was no defense left, no one willing to save her reputation. Even the walls of the house seemed to press in on her, suffocating. With a furious huff, she shoved back her chair so hard it scraped across the floor. Fine, she snapped. If you're all so quick to sat on the edge of her bed at Grandma Evelyn's house. The heels clicked against the tile as she stormed out. For the first time slamming the door behind her. She felt safe silence up in a place where she wasn't walking frozen, on eggshells, heart pounding. The morning sun washed over through the lace curtains, but beneath it lingered a hollow the smell of fresh biscuits. Her mother had chosen pride over love. When she went downstairs, over Evelyn was waiting with a warm smile. And though the truth had finally set her free, it still left an emptiness only a mother's love sliding the food in front of her. You're not starting over. You're starting right. Those words sank deep into Amara's heart. For so long, she had believed her mother's voice, the one that called her lazy, dramatic, unworthy. But here, Evelyn's voice replaced it, steady and strong, reminding her she was capable, loved, and enough. Over the next few weeks, Amara began piecing her life back together. She helped Evelyn around the house, laughed with Aunt Naomi when she visited, and leaned on Selah's constant encouragement. For the first time, she wasn't just surviving, she was living. She dusted off her old laptop and filled out college applications, carefully crafting essays late into the night. Every keystroke felt like a promise to herself, a declaration that she would build a future defined by her choices, not her mother's bitterness. She started planning her finances, looking at scholarships, even considering part-time work. For the first time, she had a vision beyond just enduring the next day. On evenings when doubt crept in, Evelyn would sit with her, holding her hand. Your father would be so proud of you, she whispered once, tears shining in her eyes. He'd tell you the same thing I am. You were never a burden. You're a gift. Those moments stitched up wounds Amara had carried for years. Slowly, the girl who once cried silently on a cold bus ride began to stand taller, her shoulders no longer weighed down by shame. Then, one quiet Sunday, her phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a name she hadn't seen since the fallout, Mom. Her thumb hovered over the answer button, her chest tightening. 100 memories flashed. The Christmas dinner, the hidden letter, the cruel words that cut deeper than any knife. She let it ring until it stopped. The silence afterward felt like closure. She didn't know Clarissa her peace, not anymore. The woman who had chosen pride over love didn't get another chance to shatter her. Instead, Amara walked into the kitchen where Evelyn was humming over a pot of soup. She slipped her arms around her grandmother's waist and whispered, "Thank you for giving me a real home." Evelyn turned, cupping her face with soft, wrinkled hands. Home isn't about walls, baby. It's about love. And you'll never run out of that here. For the first time in her 17 years, Amara believed it. She was no longer the girl her mother tried to erase. She was becoming the woman she was always meant to be. Amara sat on the porch steps of Grandma Evelyn's house, the cool evening breeze brushing against her face as the stars began to scatter across the sky. The chaos of the New Year's dinner had passed, but the echoes of her mother's words and the fallout still lingered in her mind. Yet for the first time, those echoes no longer crushed her. They reminded her of how far she had come. Her revenge hadn't been a loud battle or cruel payback. It had been the quiet but powerful act of exposing the truth. By standing in front of her family and showing them the woman her mother truly was, she reclaimed her dignity. Clarissa could no longer hide behind fake smiles or false stories. Everyone saw her for what she had done, and that was punishment enough. Amara thought back to the Christmas night when she sat on the bus, clutching a small bag, believing she was worthless. That girl was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who knew her value and refused to let bitterness define her. She wasn't a burden. She was proof that resilience could bloom even in the coldest winters. Evelyn came out and sat beside her, handing her a cup of warm tea. "You're awfully quiet," she said softly. Amara smiled faintly. "Just thinking about how everything turned out. I thought revenge meant hurting her back. But it didn't. It meant showing the truth and walking away." Evelyn nodded, her eyes full of pride. "That's the sweetest kind of justice, baby. You didn't let her drag you down to her level. You rose above it." Amara sipped her tea and let the warmth spread through her. She realized her mother's cruelty had been her own burden to carry, one she tried to dump on Amara's shoulders. But Amara no longer carried it. She left it with Clarissa, where it belonged. College acceptance letters soon arrived, and each one felt like another door opening. She started talking about majors, internships, and dreams she once thought were impossible. With Evelyn and Selah cheering her on, the world felt wide and waiting. Sometimes, she still felt a sting when she thought of her mother. Love and longing don't disappear overnight, even after betrayal. But instead of breaking her, that ache reminded her that she had chosen herself when no one else did. And that was something no one could take away. One evening, as fireworks lit up the sky, Amara whispered to herself, "I'm not broken. I'm free." Her revenge was never about making her mother suffer. It was about taking back her story, her strength, and her future. Clarissa's bitterness no longer defined her. Amara's courage did. And as the sparks glowed above, she knew her new beginning wasn't just starting. It had already begun. Do you believe Amara was right to cut ties with her mother completely, or should she have given her another chance? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear your perspective. And if stories like this move you, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next one.